Okay. Hi everyone. I have another video today from Kate Floss, the Commonwealth at War. And we're looking at the countries of Canada, Australia, New Zealand and England that all lost our constitutions that protected us in 1986, 1982, for one of them 1986. And looking at the breakup of the Commonwealth. They're trying to break us up. They want to decolonize our countries, so they say. And look what happened in Africa. It's not just decolonize, it's called decolonization, and listen up everybody, recolonization. So what they're going to do is break us down. Now, way back in the 18th to 1700s, they brought hundreds of thousands of English people, English and Europeans, Germans, all of those, and they brought them to our countries, and they used us to set up infrastructure and set up the governments for them. That's what we were used. We were the white slaves. And now, and then we all had constitutions that protected us, and those constitutions said that you could not buy or sell the native lands or the crown lands. And in 1982, 86, they removed those constitutions and put in some other constitutions. And there's a lot going on. And I'm just talking about the things that are going on in New Zealand. They're also going on in America, even in America too. And they're going on in England, and they're going on, but specifically, they're really targeting New Zealand and Australia and Canada because of all of our resources and the separation of the Indigenous people and the settlers. And you have to keep an eye on what's going on in New Zealand, because it's happening in Australia as well, state by state. And it's happening in Canada as well. And it's also happening, I suppose. I have to stay out of the other countries because I don't really know. But you all have to keep an eye on New Zealand. And so I just today want to revisit the arderns. And I did do a video about the arderns a wee while back. And I did a video about the Mormon church. And I did a video about the Fabian Society that dates back to England. And they come under the banner of the wolves in sheep's clothing. So I wanted to redo that video because you can watch video 1, but some new information has come to light. And I feel that I have to revisit the topic and an update on the information that I now have. And the main person that we are talking about here is Russell M. Nelson and the Mormon Church. They call it the Church of Latter-day Saints, or the Church of Latter-day Saints, LDS Church is what they call it. Now, I have some people, because I have a lot of friends. I have a lot of friends that are Mormons, and I have a lot of friends that are other religions. I'm not religious, but I just believe in a higher power and a spiritual being. But I don't belong to any religion because I believe they're all corrupted, not by the people that are within them, but by their leaders. Now, I'm going to be talking about the Mormon leaders that are in all of our countries at the moment. But all you people that are Mormons or Latter-day Saints or whatever, I don't want you to take offense, because I'm not talking about you. What I'm saying is that when we have one family that has so many top government positions in our geographical area, I'm saying that it's not healthy for us. That if they're in power, it may be that Russell here is a really wonderful guy. And it may be that he's going to do good things for all the world because they call him the prophet. But, you know, I'm sorry, Russell, but one day you're going to die too. We all die. And what happens when the person that replaces him, maybe they won't be so nice. Maybe he's very nice, but they won't be so nice. And when he has put his people in all the top positions around the world, and then maybe the next leader is someone that your descendants won't be happy with. What happens if your children's children decide that they no longer want to follow this religion? Maybe they'll decide that they're being too overpowered and they want to leave. So it's important that when we have our elected governments, that they're elected by the people and they're not controlled by one family or one church or one religion or one race even. So this is what's important that we look at. So I'm looking at him and his involvement in politics in New Zealand because, quite frankly, you know, there's supposed to be a separation of church and state. And the church is not supposed to be deeply involved. Of course, you can belong to a church and you can be in government, but you should. It doesn't mean that your church should control the entire government because we don't all belong to that church and we don't want to belong to that church. So I'm just going to tell you about today, about him. Now, the Ardern family. So you know that we've got Jacinda Ardern is the leader of New Zealand. And I just want to continue to talk about her family. So Russell here. So this guy here, you see here, this is Ross Ardern. Now he was put into power. He is in charge of the Cook Islands, Tokelau Islands, and Niue. He's the High Commissioner, and he was placed there by Helen Clark. We all know Helen Clark, she's very involved with this. Now, her great-great-great-great-grandfather was involved with the New Zealand Company, which I talked about in another video. But anyway, so we've got Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand and Ross Ardern in charge. Now, here's Ross Ardern here, standing by the New Zealand flag. And if you look up over, I'll get my finger here, that's the yellow tassel, and that means that New Zealand's under martial law. And that means that they can make all sorts of laws at the stroke of a pen. Any law that they want to make, they can make it at the stroke of a pen. And during this time, they change a lot of laws that New Zealanders don't even know about. There's no referendum, there's no discussion. They just change them, and you wake up one day and suddenly you've got all these laws that you didn't know about. So that's what they're doing. They're changing laws just like they threw out our 1852 Constitution. They threw it out in a single night we didn't even know about it. So there's Jacinda Ardern. Here's her father. And he came to power under Helen Clark, and she appointed him the High Commissioner of all of those islands. Now the next family member we've got here is Ian Ardern. Now he is called the area president, and later I'm going to talk about the Latter-day Saints and how they structure their government within their church, their Freemason church that they have. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about it. I don't know all about it, but you can go and research it. But here's Ian Ardern. Now, he is the area president in Samoa. So we've got Ross Ardern, we've got Jacinda. Where's Jacinda? I haven't even got Jacinda. We'll give here, this is in place. We've got Jacinda in New Zealand Parliament. And then we've got Ross Ardern, her father. He's he owns the Tokelau Islands and New Islands and Cook Islands. And then we've got Ross Ardern here, and he is in charge of Samoa. He's the area called the area president of Samoa. So there's like 3 family members controlling all this huge area. Don't you think that should be some kind of concern to New Zealand people? But it doesn't end there. So then we've got those ones there. Then we've got here, this guy here. Now, his name is Vincent Halleck, and he's from America. And her name, the woman next to him, is called Peggy Halleck. And over on the other side there, you see Jacinda in the middle, and you see Ross Ardern and his wife, Judith, I think. And so Vincent Halleck and Peggy Halleck are Jacinda Ardern's uncle and auntie. So Vincent, he controls all of the Pacific Islands, including New Zealand, that they've decided to call Aotearoa. They've changed the name of our country. Now, a lot of people don't understand when you change the name of the country, what you're signifying is the change of governance, a change of regime. So if you look at like Myanmar, if you look at Thailand used to be called Siam. When the Chinese took over, it was called Thailand. If you look at Iran, it used to be called Persia. And when the Ayatollah took over, it was called Iran. So whenever there's a change of government and a change of system, they often change the name of the country. And they've changed the name of our country, New Zealand, to be Aotearoa. Now, Aotearoa, I'll do a story about that later, but not today. But anyway, Vincent Halleck. Now, they went to meet Jacinda Ardern, and they presented her with the Mormon Bible. And Jacinda Ardern, what did she say? She said, we can learn from the experiences, and examples of those who lived before us, how they can help us in our lives today. What he's saying is, when you hear about these Fabian and Freemason societies, they pass down generation after generation. They interbreed eugenically with each other, and they pass down generation after generation the top jobs. Nobody else can get them. If you're not in those families, you're not going to get the job. We all think we elect them, but we don't. They decide, and then they decide who we can choose from. And so that's what he's talking about when he says we can learn from the experiences and examples of previous generations of how they can help our generations today. So there's a lot of family members there, aren't there? So we've got Ross Ardern, put him over there, and we've got Ian Ardern. Ian's the area president there. And then we've got Vincent Halleck and Peggy Halleck, and both of them are the auntie and uncle, and he is the president of all of the Pacific area. So he is like the president of, if you think about America, and they have all of their states, and each state has almost like, it would be similar to a New Zealand Prime Minister. Each state has a little Prime Minister in there, all right? But on top of all that, they have a big president that's in charge of all of the states. Well, this is similar to what Vincent Halleck is, that we have here Ross Ardern, and he's similar to a Prime Minister of Samoa. And then we've got Ian Ardern, and he's similar to the Prime Minister of Tokelau and Cook Islands. Yes. And then we have here Then we have Jacinda Ardern, which I don't have. Then we have Jacinda Ardern here, and she's the Prime Minister of New Zealand. Well, then we've got Vincent Hayek, and he is the president of all of them. So he sees them as states. And he's similar to the president, that you have the president of the United States. Well, Vincent Hayek is the president of the Pacifica area. They've designated New Zealand to be a Pacific country. Now, we're not part of the Commonwealth in their vision for us. So that's him. Now, it's not only him. Now, the president of all of them, the big world president, you can think of it as like, perhaps if you had a leader of the UN with all the countries, well, here's the leader of all of them. He sees himself as being the prophet, and he's the big wig, the big caboodle, the big honcho. He's the big amigo, the man of all of them, you see. Now, it doesn't even end there. Then you've got, over here, William Alpito Sio. Now, this guy here is a Samoan chief. So they're working together. They're like very great mates, good mates together. They're like peas in a pod. They're like lovers together in the country. And Alpito Sio is a Samoan chief. And he, if you understand the Pacific Islands, how they inherit is it's passed from son to son. They, even though they have to be in their government, you have to be a part of their royal family thing that they have. It's not like us. And so he is passed from all of the lands of Samoa is passed to him from his father, and he's called a Mātai, and that's a chieftain title. Now, he is working in New Zealand Parliament. You see, you've got all this group together, you've got the whole family there, and I did a video on the Pacific Island people, but we have to go back and revisit it because more information is coming to light. So you've got William Sio, he's in New Zealand Parliament, so he's not even over in Samoa. We've got Ross over in Samoa. Ross is over in Samoa, and Alpito's over in New Zealand, you see. And they're all working together to rule us. Now listen to me, it doesn't matter if you're a Pacific Islander. If you're a Pacific Islander, you're going to be coming under all this umbrella as well. We're all ruled by them. And eventually, all our choices are going to be taken away from us. And they will rule. Now, there's them. Now, here's Jacinda. And she's with Russell M. Nelson of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And he came to New Zealand Parliament and he placed the Mormon Bible in our Parliament. And if you look in the recent election of all the MPs that came to New Zealand, they all refused to swear allegiance to the Bible or swear allegiance to the Queen. Well, here's why, because he's placed the Mormon Bible into our New Zealand Parliament. And here's something interesting. Some of the people that he has been to visit in their parliaments and give them the Mormon Bible are these people. I'll tell you some of them. One of them was Barack Obama. So he went to visit Barack Obama, and we all know about the Obamas and what's going on there. And he gave the Mormon Bible to Barack Obama. He also gave, isn't this funny? You better all listen up. New Zealand, Australia, Canada, England better listen up. And America. So he gave the Mormon Bible to Barack Obama. He also went to visit in Parliament and gave the Mormon Bible to Margaret Thatcher. You see? So you know that in all of these churches, what they were saying before is they give jobs to other LSD people. So that's who gets the top jobs. And so if Margaret Thatcher had that job for many, many years, and then it gets just passed on to more that are in their club, in the Freemason club. So he gave the Bible to Margaret Thatcher. He also gave the Mormon Bible to John Howard. See, now he's been to visit all these people, and it was given also to John Howard in Parliament. And here's another interesting one. It was also given to none other than John Key. So all of these leaders have been given the Mormon Bible. And if you want to know what's going on in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and England, all our constitutions were removed, and they gave us this fake constitution that we can't, that gives us no rights. All the rights have been, New Zealand and England both have what they call an unwritten constitution. That means they're deciding what's going to go in it. Not us deciding, they'll decide what's going to go in it. So this is the people. So the people that have been getting these Mormon Bibles while they've been in Parliament are Margaret Thatcher, John Key, Jacinda Ardern, John Howard, and Barack Obama. And I tell you something, over in Canada, you better go and have a look if they've been presenting the Mormon Bible into your Parliament as well. Just give me a little break here for a minute. Go and fix this light. Okay, sorry about that. I had to change the light. Now I can't see. It's making noise. All right. So Russell M. Nelson. Now, if you see here they all are standing outside of New Zealand Parliament. Can you see them? So there's Ross Ardern, his wife, and that's her uncle, Uncle Ross Ardern, Uncle Vincent Haylick, Auntie Peggy Haylick, and then you've got there Russell M. Nelson and his wife, and that guy over there, I didn't get his name, but he is one of the presidents as well. Now, when they work for, I want to tell you now a little bit about the Mormon church, but it's only going to be a very small amount. There's a lot going on. But each of these people, if they are an area president, they receive a salary of $120,000 a year from the church. Now, you know, if they're working for our government, Ian Ardern, Ross Ardern, and even Alpito CO, they're getting their salary from the New Zealand government, which comes from us and our taxes. But not only that, they also get a salary from the Latter-day Church of $120,000 a year if they have a top position. So it pays for them to be on the side of the church. $120,000 a year, well, that's about $10,000 a month, isn't it? But they're getting extra on top of what we give them. So they would want to keep the church happy, don't you think? Don't you think there's a conflict of interest there? That how can you be working for New Zealand as a representative in Samoa, and he's also on the education board both in New Zealand and Samoa, getting paid by the New Zealand government with our New Zealand taxes, and then on top of that he gets 120,000 or more from the Latter-day Saint Church to work in their favour. Do you think there's a conflict of interest here in New Zealand? Because there is. They shouldn't be doing that. You either work for the church or you work for New Zealand. And I think you can't separate the two. If you're a leader in that church, you obviously shouldn't be working in New Zealand Parliament, separation of church and state. Now I have to just turn the light on. But that works. The light's broken. Makes noise. All right. I can't see. So I just want to tell you a little bit about the Mormon church that I don't know much about, but it focuses on a united monarchy of Israel. When you think about the Zionists and the Israelis and all of that, they have many different factions. It's just like the Christian church. We have many different Christian churches, don't we? You've got the this church and that church and all those churches as well. It's the same for the Israeli churches. They have many different types of churches, but this guy here, they call him the apostle. He is, they focus on a united monarchy of Israel. Now, they call their realm the Authority Area 70s, and it's outside the main body of the church, which means that these people, they don't often even be going into the church. So it looks like they're not involved with the church and that they can work in Parliament, but in fact they're very deeply involved in the church. And there are two high councils, one is standing and one is travelling. The Area 70 are divided into 10 quorums. 10 quorums or geographical areas. And they have the 3rd, 4th and 5th quorums were created. The third quorum, so the first quorum and the second quorum is over there in America. And then they created the 3rd quorum. And you see what's happened in Africa. They decolonized Africa. They pitted the white people against the black people. And now a lot of white people are being raped and killed, and the country is just falling apart. And who's over there? All the, I don't want to mention names, but anyway, they're buying up the lands, doing all the vaccines and things. So this was Africa that was allocated to be the 3rd quorum. Now just be careful, because Australia, Canada, we're all in the quorums. The whole world is in the quorums. So they're encircling. The 4th quorum is in Asia, and the 5th quorum is Brazil. The 6th, all of those countries. The 6th quorum is Mexico. That Mendez there, you see all of these people that are coming into our parliament, we don't know who they are. I can bet you bottom dollar that they're from the church. And they've come from those quorums because they believe in a multicultural society run by them, not run by us. And that's why they want to break up our national identity. Because if we have national identity, we will fight to be in control of our own country and our own people. Whereas if they have a big mixed up multicultural society, we're going to look for leaders, aren't we? And so when you've got a big mixed up multicultural society and you look for a leader, who are you going to look to? You don't have a national identity anymore. So you're going to look to the one power that can hold it all together. Him. or his people, or his church, his descendants, his family. That's who you're going to look to. Because when you've got a multicultural society, there's not going to be anybody to look to anymore for leadership. So we have to be very careful about this multicultural society thing in New Zealand, because they're after us. Anyway, where are we up to? So the sixth quorum is Mexico and the Caribbean. And it was in 2000, the sixth quorum, North America, was created in 2004. So it's all very recent. Very recent, since they started doing this after 1986, when all the constitutions of the Commonwealth countries were removed. Once they did that, they've started creating these quorums, because we don't have strong constitutions anymore, because we're not ruled by the British Empire anymore. They took us out of the British Empire and left us floating out in the air by ourselves. And now they've come in to gather us up into their little thing that they're doing, their quorum. And in 2005, during the Helen Clark era, when she appointed him to take care of the Samoan Islands, and she also changed the 1993 electoral law to allow foreigners to govern in our parliament. Helen Clark did that. And then in 2005, the seventh and eighth quorum were created. Now the seventh quorum includes Asia, North Australia, and the eighth quorum is New Zealand, the Pacific Islands, and the Philippines. Which what they're going to do, they're going to flood our country with all these people and destroy our national identity, is what they're going to do. Make us a multicultural society, so we don't have any groups. We can't, when you have a multicultural society, you can't form groups as easily as you can in a bicultural society. Bicultural society, we can all group together because we have very similar values and goals in life, similar beliefs. But multicultural, you've got dozens and dozens of beliefs, and it's very hard for you to join together to have a leadership. And that's what they want. They want us to have no leadership. Yeah. So ardern, he's the authority. They call them authorities. So each quorum has an authority, which means a strong leader, like a prime minister, each area. And ardern is the authority to the eighth quorum, which is us, okay? And he gets New Zealand taxpayers. So they belong to the two houses of Israel. Now, in the church, so here, try and keep you up to date. So in the church, that they have their geographic area. So here are the 12 apostles. So these are the guys that rule the whole caboodle, the whole thing. They're all in America, and they rule. And so the third, fourth, and fifth quorums. Here we go. 1997, the third, fourth, and fifth quorums were created. And originally Australia was in the third quorum. The original was Europe, Africa, Asia, and Australia were in the third quorum. And the fourth quorum was Mexico, Central America. It wasn't until 2005 that New Zealand became one of the quorums. And I'll tell you why. Because we had strong constitutions. We had the strongest constitutions in the world because of the treaty and the Declaration of Independence and the 1689 Bill of Rights and the 1852 Constitution. We had four protections for our country, and it's taken them all this time to knock them out. And all we've got left now is the treaty, the last thorn in their side that they want to get out. And so that's why we were so late in becoming one of the quorums. Not on, I don't want to go there. So anyway, here are the guys here. Now let's see if I can tell you about Russell. Just a minute. So we've been separated from Australia now. So I'll tell you that. We have to keep this all together. I don't know if you can hear that light, but it's very annoying, but we'll just try and push on through, because otherwise I can't read. It's either light and noisy or no light and I can't see. So here's these three guys here, and these are called apostles. They're the apostles. And you see here, these are all, this is called the first presidency. The first presidency means that they're like the kings. He's almost like the king. And he has two sidekicks. And they're called the first counselor and the second counselor of the first presidency. So those are the three bigwigs there. Now, the president is called Russell M. Nelson, and the first councillor is Dalen H. Oakes, and the second councillor is President Henry B. Eyring. And so they travel all around the world. They're the ones that speak. They meet with the Pope. They're the ones, well, he meets with the Pope. They're the ones that go and meet the leaders and give them the Mormon Bibles inside our parliaments. That's the three of them. They go all around the world. And that's called the first presidency. And then he has two councillors next to him. So they're almost like, he's almost like the king. He's the king caboodle of the whole shebang. And then his two sidekicks, he's got one on the right hand and one on the left hand, and they're like the princes of the king caboodle. Now, if we come in here to the Pacific area, here, I don't know if you can see it. Now this one is Elder Vincent Halleck, here, in the middle here. He is Jacinda Ardern's uncle, and he stays in America. Now, he is the president of the Pacific area. That I told you, like in America they have all the states that are like little wee New Zealanders, little wee New Zealand countries, and each state has got like a little prime minister, okay? And then they have a president of the whole country. So he is the president of all of the Pacific area, the quorum. So it probably would include both the 7th and 8th quorum. He's the president, and the prime ministers, so to speak, are these two guys. This guy here is Ian Ardern, which is Jacinda Ardern's uncle. So he's got two uncles there, Uncle 1 and Uncle 2, and I think they're related as well. I think he's a son. He is maybe a son, I'm not sure. But anyway, we've got this guy here called Brett Natris, so you can't really see here, but anyway, it's Vincent Halleck is the president, and then Ian Ardern, elder, they call him the elder, Ian Ardern, he's the first councillor, and Elder K. Brett Natris, remember his name because I'm going to talk about him later, he is the second councillor, all right, and then they are ruled by them. Can I get that there? So they are ruled by them, and then they are all ruled by them, and then everyone is ruled by him. So he's on the top, and then they come up next. See if we can do this. So he's on the top, and then along come him and his counselors here, and then they rule them, and then they rule them. And you see, like that, that's how it is. And then they all rule her. That's how it goes. You see? If I was good at computer, I would set it all up so that you could see. Now this is all fact. You can go and research it. I'm not stalking Jacinda, but you know, we as New Zealand people, Australian people, we all have a right to know what's going on, and we have a right to know who's ruling in our parliament, and we have a right to understand the structure that all these people have set up to rule us, because they are in power over us. You can't dispute that. Go and read all of their names and all of their positions. Nothing I'm saying to you is a lie. It's all truthful. Facebook checkers, freaks. It's not a lie, it's all truthful. So you can go and look at it. But I'm just showing you how their organisation is set up and how we are being ruled by them. It doesn't matter if you're Pacific Islander. It doesn't matter who you are. We're all being ruled by that structure. You have to ask yourself, do you want your children's children? These are all very nice people. Maybe a lot of people like them, but the people that will replace them will be their descendants and their descendants. And it might be that the descendants of the descendants are not going to be nice to your descendants. And your descendants might not want to live under this structure. And they're fucking stuck with it because we let it happen. We let that happen to our descendants. So anyway, here's Ross Ardern with Alpito CO, and you can see that they are very good friends. And of course, he is the leader of the Pacific Islands, and funnily enough, the leader of the Pacific Islands is in New Zealand, and the leader of New Zealand is in Samoa. So what's going on there, people? And there they are, having a little church meeting, all happy. We did it. We've got control of the whole fucking lot of them. It's quite scary, really, isn't it? Now, doesn't even end there. My leg hurts. Oh, I've got pins and needles. What the heck am I going to do? Now, these guys here, so this is the area presidency. So that you have these guys here, you've got the president of the world and his first councillor and his second councillor, right? And then you've got the president of the Pacific area and his first councillor and his second councillor. And then you've got this guy here. This is the area. Okay, so this is he's the Pacific, all the Pacific, the entire caboodle kind of thing. But this one is just only focused on the area, like Samoa or Tokelau or Japan. So there's Elder Ian Ardern. He's the area first president. See, he's got two jobs because he's also a first councillor here. So he's like a vice president to the president of the United States kind of thing. but then he's also in charge of the area of Samoa as well, and he's the president of the area. So over here he's just first councillor, but over here he's actually the president or prime minister, so to speak, of Samoa. And he has a first councillor here, and if you look over here, Brett Natras over there, he's the second councillor. So Ian Ardern is the first councillor, and Brett Natras is the second councillor. But in the area, Ian Ardern is the president and Brett is the first councillor. And then the second councillor, he goes down a bit, is Kazuhiko Yamashita. So he's from Japan. So Japan's in all of this as well. Now, I want to move on a bit, and I want to tell you about this guy here, Brett Natras. Brett Natras, he is the owner and manager of a thing, he's the co-founder and president of a thing called Advanced Healthcare. And he contracts for advanced healthcare. And I'm just wondering, if you go and look at advanced healthcare in New Zealand, I think that since we've become a corporation, he is the one that runs the corporation of the elderly healthcare in New Zealand and the end of life choice. The end of life choice was created by Kazuhiko. He created the end of life choice machine, I think, came from Japan. And I have to research that again. So both of those are involved with the advanced healthcare, and I'm assuming in New Zealand he set it up. So it just means that all of the big contracts in New Zealand are handed to people within the church, and that's how they make their money. You know, nobody gives them money, but what they do is they set up a company like healthcare or education, anything like that. They set up these, or the suicide prevention. And what happens is we pay all the taxes to the government, and the government then goes and gives all this money to their company to then give back their services to the New Zealand people. And so everything what they do is they make money. It's all legal. It's nothing illegal. They know they want to have a government contract. They know, they say, oh, we want school lunches in the school. So before they announce that there's going to be school lunches in the school, they have one of their people set up a company. And when they've got the company all set up, then they decide to offer, they tell everybody, they put out all this media saying, oh, we need school lunches because everybody's going to be so hungry and we want to have them. Well, then they contract the company and they pay them millions of dollars of our tax money to provide the school lunches, but they have the monopoly on it. And so he is in charge of advanced healthcare all through he is to do with the management of the old people's homes and all the people that go to work there that come from the Philippines. And then I just want you to know also another little tidbit. Now, this apostle, they call him apostle. Now, he was, for 34 years, he was a member of here, the 12 apostles. And then he rose up from there and he became the president, like the big king, the big caboodle. Funnily enough, guess what his mother's name was? You would never guess. His mother's name was Floss Nelson. Must be a relative of Kate Floss. Who would have thought? Floss Nelson is his mother's name. Not the family. Now, he issued a mandate in 2018. He issued a mandate to forbid adult males to teach classes of children. The Mormon Church, so when you're thinking about New Zealand, they're bringing all this stuff that they're teaching our kids about sex and everything, our little 5-year-olds about sex and everything, and all these horrible things that they're teaching our children. Well, he was the one that made a mandate, only in his country, not in New Zealand, that adult males could not teach classes of children. And it's an interesting story about why he might have done that, okay? That's his daughter, and that's his son-in-law. Now, they were accused of child molestation and child rape. Yeah, that's his daughter. I forgot to write their names. I should have written their names. I didn't write them down. Now, in 2004, a man called Brett Bullock, he was convicted of abusing his own children and boys as young as 7 years old, raping boys as young as 7 years old within the church. And they were ward parents, meaning that they were taking children from the homes and putting them in the homes of these people that were then having church meetings and raping the children. Now, they had these people called baby tenders, which were, you know, the younger people that would care for the younger children. And the baby tenders were accused of sexually abusing the children. And one of the things that, one of them in 1986, a lady called Janice, a baby tender, was they used to have groups, and apparently they were putting crayons up inside the little children's bodies. Freaks. And the therapy that they received, they had a therapy group, and it was by Dick and Brenda Miles. And Brenda Miles, is the daughter of Russell M. Nelson. Now, this all happened in 1986, and they would have touchy parties, and in the touchy parties, the adults would ask the children to dance for them, and then they would encourage the children to remove their clothes, and after that, they would encourage the children to accept the candy. And then they would insert the crayons and the candy onto the genitals of the children. They would get the powder candy and they would put it on the genitals of the children. They would have a touchy party where they'd get the other children to lick the candy off of the genitals. This is what they were doing. They would put it on the little kid's penis. And then they would get the other kids to lick the candy off in a fun, touchy party game. These are the people in our parliament setting the education rules for our children. You've got to know what's going on, New Zealand. You've got to research. You know, we have the right to know. If you're going to be in public office, we have a right to know everything about you and the people that surround you and what they're doing. And this is a serious issue. Now, they went to court in around about 2019. And as we all know, these Freemason demolay, that you'll ask, I forget her name, but the Freemason demolay that they have judges in their system, and these people went to the court, and the court said what they used was, they said the statute of limitations should have been over. When the case originally went to court way back in the 1980s, 1986, what happened was a lot of the children were still very small children, and the man Brett Bullock, the people that they accused, not everybody got accused in the court. These people here were accused, and then the courts said there was no evidence for them, and they threw it out. But those children grew up, and then later on in 2018 or 19, all those children came back, and they re-prosecuted these two here. And the children, and then these two here said that the children were victims of false memories that they were given. So a couple of the people that were abusing the children, they were convicted and they were put into prison, but these two here were not, because they said that the statute of limitations in 2018 had already, it was such a long time, it was like 30 years ago or something, and they shouldn't be allowed to prosecute that now. Right, just a minute, I'm making my video, okay? So I just wanted to let you know that I'm coming in a minute, making my video. Wait a minute, go to the multi-part. Sorry, hello? Anyway, you have to understand and be clear, they've never been prosecuted and never been convicted, and they have been cleared according to the judge that cleared them. But you can think about that whatever you want. It's a very powerful man, very powerful people. Who knows? They would have been quite young when all that went on. It might have been that they were young and they were just as abused themselves, because they probably only would have been teenagers themselves. And it's very easy, because a lot of these, criminals that rape children and things, they do get teenagers to do things that teenagers normally wouldn't do. So it may have been that that was all part of the church, because the church is well known, that church specifically is well known for child rape and child molestation. So I'm just letting you know that this is what's been going on. Not saying that they had anything to do with it. Just saying that there are newspaper articles about all of this. Now, the last thing, yeah, they have to have these parties. They have the touchy parties twice a month, or whenever the adults could get the children alone. This is the thing, you've got to watch your kids these days and teach your kids. They get the children. And let's see now, yeah. And they were having the touch parties with children that were as young as 1 year old. So it's pretty bad stuff. Now, he is considered to be one of the richest men in the world. Oh, I've lost it. He's considered to be one of the richest men in the world. And he is known to have accumulated, I've lost my pieces of paper now, more than the Mormon church has stockpiled, more than $100 billion. $100 billion that was designated for charities is in their tax haven in the Pacific Islands, where they don't get any tax on it, you see. I did do a video about it. Just a minute. Hello? Go to Tam Park and I'll meet you there. All right, well, come on then, come on the bus. Come on a taxi. Get a taxi. Get a taxi. All right, bye-bye. Taxi, 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 not bus. Oh, sorry. Anyway, the video's finished. I have to cut that little bit. But the $100 billion that I did do a video about the tax haven of the Pacific Islands, which is different to here. But they have accumulated $100 billion, and they have all this power in New Zealand, all this power in Australia, Canada, England. They're everywhere. Wherever you look, every country has been put into their quorum. And you have to wonder if the Great Reset is to do with their new quorum that they created in 1997. All this started. They started putting the quorums together in 1997. And here we are, just only 20 short years later, from the third quorum. They've added on 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There are now 10 quorums, and they're geographically realigning our countries to fit into their quorums. And they're going to have control of each of our countries. So listen up, New Zealand, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, England, we've got to join together. All the Maori-Peans, we've got to join together, and we have to stand together as a nation and save our national identity. So we're just looking at, I'm not accusing anybody, but I'm just saying these are the people in power. You can go and look it up. There's no lies there. And they're the people in power. And we've got here some of the names that you want to look at is Vincent Halleck, Alpito Williams CO, Ross Ardern, Ian Ardern, Jacinda Ardern, the Hallecks, Russell M. Nelson. You can also go and research his daughter, Richard and Brendan Miles, Brett Bullock. Go and research. Another one here. Who have we got here? Elder Brett Natras. There they all are. Go and research them. Vincent Halleck, Brett Natras, Ian Ardern. Go and research them. It's all there. And just ask yourself, what's going on? How much power do we really have when we have these elections? Are they really our elections, or are they controlled? Are our elections controlled by other people? By these kinds of people? That's the question that we have to ask ourselves. Are we being controlled by these people? Do we really have free and fair elections? That's what we have to ask ourselves. Right, that's all I've got for you today. Peace out, and save the Commonwealth. Keep the Commonwealth together. Don't let them break us up. See you later.